Hello, world, and welcome to the In My Footsteps podcast. I am Christopher Setterland, coming to you from the vacation destination known as Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Oh yes, here it is, episode 250, Listener's Choice. It's like a game show filled with Gen X nostalgia. What are the prizes that you have won for listening? Well, sorry, nothing besides entertainment, but it will be entertaining. Everything here has been voted on by you, the listeners. It's going to start off with a look back at the biggest soap opera fails of the 1980s. We're going to go way back in the day and look at just a ridiculous Kmart employee training video from the early 1990s. There's going to be a brand new top 5 as we look at the top 5 worst actors ever. And there will be a brand new This Week in History and Time Capsule looking back at the invention of the very first ring donut. We'll make Homer Simpson very happy. All of that is coming up right now on Listener's Choice, episode 250 of the In My Footsteps podcast. Yes, a little game show and music to start us off. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for helping me get to 250 episodes of this Gen X Nostalgia podcast. I have worked almost week in and week out for closing in on 6 years. What began as a fun side passion project to deal with the crushing, horrible reality of COVID America is now spiraled to my weekly obsession of just sharing fun, quirky, weird nostalgia topics for people of my generation or any generation. Because yes, I call it a Gen X Nostalgia podcast, but it is not limited to people of my age. I say it so much on this show that nostalgia is a powerful drug. And as some of you know, this podcast stemmed from my decision, the tough decision to be able to give up alcohol almost 6 years ago in September of 2020. Within a few weeks, my brain recovered from being nothing but an alcohol sponge, and the idea for this podcast came from it. In the beginning, it was basically little bits of everything that I like to talk about. So there was loads of Cape Cod and New England travel, history, and there would be a little slice of nostalgia in there. It was probably a little over 2 years ago when I realized that I was running out of time and topics when it came to Cape Cod history, New England history. The research was a lot. I have a full-time day job, and then my content creation has become not quite full-time, but getting close to full-time. It's not that Gen X nostalgia pop culture is less research, but it is that there is way more that I can mine from to give you things that are entertaining. It's incredible to think that I've been doing this for almost 6 years, 250 episodes, tons of bonus content on Patreon. I've got mixtape episodes, which are not canon as far as the podcast goes. So I think technically it's over 250 episodes, but shh, don't tell anyone. You who have listened from the start, or at least have caught up on the archives, you have heard me go through a lot of different things. Book releases, the beginning of my Lady of the Dunes journey, the adventure with the Cape Cod true crime case. You've heard me deal with the deaths of loved ones. I have a segment on the podcast called The Time Capsule, where I go back in time, a random date in the last, 80 years, and tell you about number one movies, TV shows, songs, and something that was going on back on that date. The interesting reality is that this podcast has now become a time capsule of my life over the last nearly 6 years. It's gone from episode 1, me being less than 2 months out from giving up my crushing alcohol addiction, to now at episode 250 being less than 2 months away from producing my first ever feature-length film. It means the world to me to have people that tune into this, because I do put a lot of work into it, but I love doing it. So whether it was one person or thousands of people, I'd probably keep doing it anyway. But I mean, let's get real. It's better to have people that tune in, that listen to the show, that check out my other content, so that I don't feel totally like I'm just shouting into the void. Even though this is kind of a typical episode where I've got the same sort of layout, I am going to be going through this and kind of looking back just at the overall journey of this podcast and the life of a content creator that has kind of come from it. It might sound like I'm just patting myself on the back a lot, but honestly, it comes back to you, the listeners, who make this part of your weekly routine. I thank you so much, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, for making my show or any of my content a part of your routine, whether it's weekly, whether you dip in and out. I have hundreds and thousands of pieces of content, so even if you don't check out all of it, which, I mean, I'm sure few of you do, the fact that you're here and listening means a lot. And 250 episodes, it's kind of just the beginning. I, in reality, have enough research I've done for this podcast that I could easily do another 200 episodes, and I'm constantly doing more research. There will be more time for thank yous throughout episode 250. Before we get into the listener's choice portion, the stuff that you all voted on, I have to make sure that I thank my Patreon subscribers, the biggest fans that helped me get to where I am. Thank you to Laurie, Mary Lou, Ashley, Kevin, Leo, Marguerite, Neglectoid, Crystal, Matt, Dr. Shrimp Porto Chico. Thank you all for being my biggest supporters, the people that literally put their money where their mouth is to support me, the podcast, my never-ending quest to be a full-time, self-employed content creator. You too can become a Patreon subscriber. I have a few different tiers, including a free tier. There's loads of content, members-only podcasts, early access to the Hidden Track podcasts, the Remastered Without a Map live streams. I'm starting to noodle with the idea of doing some kind of a video podcast that might consist of me driving around Cape Cod and just talking about random things. The other day on Instagram, I put up a story where I was talking about my feature-length film coming up, The Cabin, and I did it while driving, almost as a test run, to see if I could actually keep a coherent conversation while also driving. So we'll see. But there will be a lot of time for housekeeping at the end of the podcast, because this is a celebration. It's episode 250. 250 times I have done that hello world introduction. You'd think by this point I would just have pre-recorded that so I could just play it. But nope, I guess not. So let's get into it. Listener's Choice, episode 250 of the In My Footsteps podcast. Let's kick it off now with something that you voted for. The biggest soap opera fails, both day and primetime, of the 1980s, coming up right now. I freely admit, when I put together the polls for episode 250, there was nothing in there that I didn't want to talk about. That's kind of the joke. You can vote for whatever you want, and there's none of those where I would look back and say, oh man, I don't want to really talk about that, because why would I do that to myself? I tried to choose wide-ranging sorts of topics, and that's where this one comes in. 1980 soap opera fails. You talk about something that seems so random, but when you've been doing a nostalgia podcast for almost 6 years, your brain, I guess, kind of works in different ways. When you look at soap operas of the 1980s, you've got some of the legendary ones, General Hospital, One Life to Live, As the World Turns, or primetime soap operas like Dallas, Dynasty, Falcon Crest. These are not any of those. These are the soap operas that were brought in with maybe some hype, maybe some famous stars, but they just did not pan out. At first, this was just going to be daytime soap operas, but I found that there weren't a lot that were considered fails. In fact, some of these that are seen as failures had a couple of hundred episodes, which seems to go kind of against the failure concept. I have 8 different soap operas here that we're going to go into. I will tell you in all honesty, out of these 8, there are 0 that I had ever heard of. So these, to me, these are all fails. to you, maybe some of these are on your frequently watched list from the 1980s. So please don't take it personally as I jump on these and laugh at them. The first one we're going to talk about here is definitely the definition of a failure, and that is bare essence.
The bare passion, the bare power, the bare lies, the bare truth. The hot new series that strips life to its bare essence. Tiger Hayes is the Golden Girl. Love her.
This was a primetime soap opera that aired on NBC. It starred Jeannie Francis, and it's about the super exciting and volatile world of the perfume industry. I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, you could find some excitement there. They had a funny episode of Seinfeld where Kramer had his idea for the cologne The Beach. But just imagine if the whole show was just about that. How exciting was this show? It lasted for 11 total episodes between February and June of 1983. There was at first a mini-series in 1982, so they picked up the show for a first season in 1983. It was heavily promoted, but I guess you can't sell intrigue in the perfume industry. It was canceled with all kinds of cliffhangers just left unsolved. I think when it comes to any TV shows where they get canceled before they can resolve all of their storylines, they should have the creators just come out and say, here's what we were going to do. I'm sure there were 3 or 4 people that were looking for the bare essence storylines to be solved. But oh well, ratings dictate everything. The next soap opera fail of the 80s is a show called Rituals. This was a daytime soap that was in first-run syndication, basically meaning that it didn't really have a network home. It could be on any channel. Even that didn't help it. It lasted for 1 year in general, from September 1984 to September 1985. It was loosely based on a novel called Rituals, set in the fictional Virginia town of Wingfield. It mostly has to do with the battle between a couple of the town's biggest employers, the biggest businesses, and all of the big-time families in this town. It was a ratings fail, but like I said, some of these had a lot of episodes. Rituals, even though it was canceled after a year, had 260 episodes. Because it would be on 5 days a week for a full year, so that makes sense. Think about how many super successful, popular TV shows in history that didn't make it to 260 episodes. Seinfeld, The Office, All in the Family, Friends. But Rituals made it. Yay, super fail. Another soap opera fail, and this one should have been obvious from the start, was the show called Texas.
There's only one state big enough to handle this much passion.
Stay with me tonight.
Honor.
But we can't lose this ranch.
Well, we're not about to give it up without a fight.
Love.
Dawn, I want to be with you forever.
And greed.
I had something a little more than gratitude in mind.
Texas. Weekdays on NBC.
Because if you like Dallas, then Texas is bigger than Dallas, so you'll love Texas. Nope. So in reality, it's not a spin-off of Dallas. It is a spin-off of another popular soap opera, Another World. It was, though, seen as trying to capitalize on the popularity of Dallas. The show was on for 2 years between 1980 and 1982, and a total of 617 episodes. That's why this segment is fascinating, because you can have a show that had over 600 episodes be seen as a fail. They tried to give it a good start with having some of the characters that would be on Texas be on Another World in the weeks leading up to the debut of the show. It had to do with one of the characters from Another World, Isis Corey Carrington, leaving that show to go visit her son who has moved to Houston, and then when she's there, she reconnects with an old flame, and well, you know how soap operas go. It was a bomb because if you wanted to watch a show about Texas, you could watch Dallas, and if you liked people from Another World, you could watch the show Another World. Another show that should have been seen as a fail from before it started was Glitter.
I I guess we could do worse than write for the most popular and exciting magazine in the world, huh?
Hey, pass the soy sauce and write, will you?
David Burney and Morgan Brittany. They're with you on the pages of Glitter this fall.
This was a primetime soap opera. It ran for a little over a year from September 1984 to December 1985. Glitter was created by famed producer Aaron Spelling, who you may know from Beverly Hills 90210, among others. Glitter is a celebrity magazine, I guess kind of like People or maybe Entertainment Weekly. The show lasted a total of 14 episodes, although it was kind of doomed from the start. It was scheduled on Thursday nights, and it would go up against shows like Night Court, Cheers, and Simon and Simon. So not only was the premise not seen as too good, but then you put it up against these top 20 ratings powerhouses. No wonder it failed. The Glitter name is just scarred now. Not only was it a failed 1980 soap opera, it was also the ultra fail of a movie that starred Mariah Carey in 2001. There should be a battle there. What was the bigger failure? Glitter the TV show or Glitter the movie? The biggest fail would be whoever actually watched all of it and did the segment, because I'm not doing it. You will not see that on Listener's Choice episode 300 for you to vote on. Long before the teen drama soap opera of Beverly Hills 90210, there was Secrets of Midland Heights. The only secret of this is how the hell did this show even get on the air? So terrible was this, it lasted for a month. Well, to be fair, 6 weeks from December 1980 through January 1981. 8 episodes aired, 3 were left unaired. That's when you know a show is a failure, just in general, where it's like, you've got extra shows you could put on, and it's like, no, they're so bad, we're just gonna throw them in the dumpster. The show was about the interactions and romantic storylines with teens in this fictional town of Midland Heights. The crazy thing about this show is that it starred Linda Hamilton, Lorenzo Lamas, and Melora Hardin, who, if you don't know her, she was Jan on The Office. They were part of the teen cast. It's interesting showing what a different world it was in the early 80s of television, where Midland Heights, in its last episode that aired, got nearly 11 million viewers, and even had one of their episodes as high as 22 million viewers. But yet it was canceled that fast. If you think 8 episodes and being canceled was fast, well, I got news for you. The Hamptons, the next show, was canceled after 5 episodes.
It's the premiere of The Hamptons, a royal retreat for a dynasty of empire builders.
Why not ask your wife where she spent the night?
The hottest place to spend your summer vacation is at The Hamptons.
This was on in the summer of 1983. It had to do with 2 wealthy families in the Long Island, New York community of the Hamptons. I knew the Hamptons more from George Costanza on Seinfeld pretending that he had a home out there. Gloria Monty was the producer of this show, and she's the one that she turned around General Hospital when at first it was kind of a ratings bust. So they had a good person in charge of it. I guess this was seen as kind of like a space filler in between seasons. So there was no guarantee that it was going to get picked up. The producers tried to grease the skids by having the 5th and final episode be very scandalous to try to get the show picked up. In classic soap opera fashion, one of the main characters was revealed to have forced his stepdaughter into an incestuous relationship. They figured people might want to know about that. I think more were just grossed out. It's like, nah, we're not going to watch that show. As we get near the end of this segment, one of the last soap opera fails of the 1980s was The Yellow Rose.
I've traveled down some dusty roads, I've slept out in the rain.
But this yellow rose is always here when you come home again.
Which, to be transparent, speaking of fails, I had it written in my notes as Yellow Road, so I'm looking up, trying to find stuff about it. I'm like, where is this Yellow Road show? And it's like, oh no, it's Rose. Yay, I'm smart. 250 episodes in, and there you go. Yellow Rose, not Road, was set on a 200,000 acre ranch. It was meant to be a Western soap opera. It starred Sam Elliott and Sybil Shepherd, so you had stars, but it only lasted for 22 episodes between October 1983 and May 1984. Again, it comes back to it being a different time as far as ratings go, because this show was routinely getting 10 to 11 million viewers per episode, but that was seen as really low. I get, there was less competition then. So when you've got 3 major networks, if your show's getting 10 million and on the other networks they're getting 25 to 30 million, I guess it would be seen as a fail. The 8th and final soap opera fail of the 1980s is another primetime soap called Paper Dolls. This show lasted a whopping 14 episodes between September and December 1984. This show focused on the cutthroat world of cosmetics and modeling. The modeling agency owner was Morgan Fairchild, so you had a star there. You also had Lloyd Bridges, Nicolette Sheridan, who was a big star in the 80s. It seemed like this show had a chance. It debuted with over 18 million viewers and People magazine giving it a glowing write-up. A big problem with this was that during its run, it was preempted several times for the Major League Baseball playoffs. So I guess it just was not meant to be. There you go, though. 1980 soap opera fails. Sometime likely in the future, I'll be doing 70s, 90s soap opera fails. I do find it interesting that a few of these had several hundred episodes and they were considered fails when I did my research. This week in history, we are going back 179 years to June 22nd, 1847, and the invention of the very first ring donut.
Donuts.
Yes, Homer, I agree. Donuts are awesome. Donuts have a deep connection to my family, that sounds weird. They are deeply connected because my grandfather ran a donut shop on Cape Cod, Sullivan's Donuts, for about 20 years in the 70s through the 90s. He also ran several donut shops up in the Brockton area of Massachusetts in the 50s, 60s. I consider myself a connoisseur of fine donuts. Before we get started, if you are curious about my grandfather's donut shop, Sullivan's, I did a full segment on Sullivan's Donuts back in episode 20 of the podcast that was dedicated to my grandpa. And B, if you're on Cape Cod and you're curious what his donuts would have tasted like, visit the hole-in-one donut shops. Because when they were starting out, they bought some of my grandfather's equipment and they make their donuts the same way that he used to. So there you go. There are very few food inventions that were as simple or as influential as the hole in the middle of the donut. I mean, today the ring donut is instantly recognizable. Millions get sold every day, probably every second. Its origins are traced back to a young American sailor named Hanson Crockett Gregory. Before 1847, modern donuts were in North America with Dutch settlers during the 17th and 18th centuries. They were fried cakes known as oily cakes, just balls of sweet dough fried in fat. These early donuts were often stuffed in the center with nuts or fruit or other fillings because the middle tended to remain undercooked while the outside browned. For decades, the bakers accepted this flaw as unavoidable. You would naturally have the outside of the donut be nice and crispy and delicious, and the middle would be kind of doughy. Hanson Gregory was born in the coastal community of Rockport, Maine. According to the most commonly repeated accounts, Gregory was only 16 years old when he came up with the idea of removing the center of the donuts. His mother, Elizabeth Gregory, was already known for making fried dough treats, flavoring them with nutmeg, cinnamon, lemon peel. There are different variations of the story. According to Gregory himself, he explained that he removed the center portion of the donut because it never cooked properly. He either just removed it on his own, used the top of a tin pepper container, or a round cutter. Historians disagree about which version of the story is accurate, but the central idea is the same. Gregory removed the problematic center of the dough, and the result took a thick ball of dough with an undercooked middle into a ring shape exposed to more surface area of the oil completely. The oil reached the dough from both the outside and inside. It was the birth of the modern donut. As of last year, it's reported that Dunkin' Donuts alone sells upwards of 8 million donuts daily. So yeah, this was an important invention. The science of it was a brilliant idea because there was more even cooking, less grease was needed to cook the donuts, there were consistent results, easier handling, they were easier to stack and transport and display in bakeries, with some stories suggesting that sailors could carry several donuts by threading them onto ropes. You imagine walking around with a belt that was threaded with donuts? I mean, that's like a Homer Simpson joke just writing itself. There is a broad agreement that Gregory claimed to have invented the first ring donut in 1847. Historians note that there were baked goods with holes that existed before, like bagels and pretzels. The key distinction comes in the fact that Gregory appears to have been the first one to popularize a specific ring-shaped fried donut. The idea quickly gained acceptance, and by the late 19th century, donuts were widely recognized as a distinctly American food. In 1872, the first donut-cutting machine was patented in Maine. The interesting irony is that they spent years trying to get rid of that doughy middle of a donut, and then eventually the donut holes you could sell on their own. Dunkin' Donuts has munchkins. My grandpa's shop used to call them donut holes. So you ended up not wasting anything. Gregory lived until 1921, spending much of his life as a sea captain, but over the decades his claim to fame grew, and he became celebrated as the inventor of the donut hole and the ring donut. In 1947, on the centennial of his invention, there was a monument erected to him in his hometown of Rockport, Maine. So that means if you're ever traveling up in Maine, go look for the monument to the creator of the ring donut. So I'm giving you permission to go off your diet or to enjoy a sweet treat to celebrate the invention of the first ring donut 179 years ago this week in history. Now I'm punching out the doughy center of a new time capsule. For this one, we're going back 76 years, June 22nd, 1950. So the anniversary of the creation of the first ring donut, and also 1 month since the very first Dunkin' Donuts opened in Quincy, Massachusetts. What was going on in the world of pop culture back then? Well, let's find out. The number one song was the Third Man theme by Anton Karas. This was the theme song from the 1949 film The Third Man, which starred Orson Welles among others. It became one of the most popular motion picture themes ever as far as charts go, spending 11 weeks at number one. The Third Man wasn't a big hit in theaters. It was critically acclaimed. It won an Academy Award for cinematography and is 99% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The number one movie was Father of the Bride, and you could get into the theater with a ticket costing 46 cents. This is the original film that gave way to the remake with Steve Martin in the 1990s. It's about a man preparing for the upcoming wedding of his daughter. It stars Spencer Tracy, Elizabeth Taylor. It was a decent hit at the box office, making just over $6 million on a budget of about $1.2 million. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards and is 90% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And if you were wondering, and I know you were, the 1991 remake with Steve Martin was a massive hit, making $129 million on a budget of $20 million, and is also 71% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The number one TV show was the Texaco Star Theater. In the very, very early days of TV, this show was pretty much number one all the time until I Love Lucy showed up. It was your standard variety show, originally hosted by Milton Berle. It started on the radio in 1938, eventually switching to TV in 1948 and staying on the air until 1956. You could say this show was a hit. At times at its peak, it had 80% of the audience of television. In total, Texaco Star Theater had 261 episodes during its television run. And if you were around back then, June 22nd, 1950, maybe you had a hankering for some donuts and coffee. You heard about this new place that just opened up, Dunkin' Donuts. Well, you can go and check it out. You could get yourself a small coffee for 10 cents in 1950. Typically today, a Dunkin' Donuts coffee can cost as much as $2.99 for a small. You could get yourself a donut for 5 cents, with today the cheapest donuts being somewhere around $1.09. And if you liked your donuts, in 1950 there were 32 varieties. Today there are more than 70 varieties of donuts at Dunkin' Donuts. There you have it though. Another time capsule, another This Week in History wrapping up for episode 250. Now let's get into another topic that you voted for, the new top 5 listener's choice, worst actors ever. Oh boy, how many of these people's films have you wasted money on? Me, a lot. This is going to be a classic. Your list may vary from mine as we look at the top 5 worst actors ever. Obviously, when it comes to quote-unquote worst, it's all subjective. I did a lot of research. So I looked up people that failed at the box office the most, critical responses, Razzie Award nominations, ones that are just generally disliked as far as people. I tried to just not make it people that I didn't like as actors. I tried to be a little bit objective, a little. There is an excellent article that I use as kind of a jumping off point for this segment from a website called Stat Significant, and it uses a lot of real metrics to determine the worst actors ever. I will put that in the podcast notes if you want to check it out. As with most of these top 5s, they're in no particular order. I've got some honorable mentions. I pretty much guarantee that a few of these actors are going to be on your list of worst, but also probably on your list of favorites. So let's just get into it. Honorable mentions for worst actors ever include Sylvester Stallone, who I had to put on here because he has the most Razzie nominations in the history of those awards. It's like you can't have the most award nominations for being worst actor and not be put on here, even though he was in the Rocky movies. I mean, come on, he did Rhinestone and Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, so he has to be on this list. Another honorable mention is Megan Fox. She started out with a bang with Transformers, but she's had several movies that are 20% or lower on Rotten Tomatoes. Jonah Hex, Passion Play. Another honorable mention is Russell Brand. He is one that I just do not like. He's incredibly annoying, but he did Get Him to the Greek. He did the remake of Arthur, and he's been in the news for just being kind of a dirtbag human being as it is, so he easily makes this list. Another honorable mention is Rob Schneider, another jackass human, but also someone that only has a name in Hollywood because he's friends with Adam Sandler. He's done those garbage Deuce Bigelow movies, The Animal, The Hot Chick, just line after line of crap. And the final honorable mention for worst actors ever is Andy Dick. It is fitting that Andrew Tomlinson, his real name, chose Dick as his fictional last name because there are so many stories of him being just that. He's a D-list celebrity with garbage movies, including Strange Wilderness, which was 2% on Rotten Tomatoes. So those are the honorable mentions. The only one on this entire list, including the top 5 that I hesitated on, was Stallone. But then when I saw just how many Razzie nominations he had, which, if you need to know, he's been nominated for Razzies more than 40 times and won 12 times. Oh, but let's get into it. The top 5 worst actors ever, starting with number 1, Madonna. That StatSignificant.com article had Madonna listed as the worst actor ever based on all their criteria. Razzies, box office fails, critical consensus. She has had some just awful movies. Swept Away, Shanghai Surprise, Body of Evidence, which is basically like a rip-off version of Basic Instinct. The problem with Madonna is the fact that she's undeniably one of the greatest musical artists of all time. She has sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 450 million albums worldwide in her career that spans over 40 years. So it's sort of like when you've got one of the most popular musical acts ever, and they say, oh, I want to do some movies. You're going to say, all right, if they're even close to as good as they are singing, maybe they'll be good at the box office. Her highest grossing film ever was A League of Their Own, which made $107 million back in 1992. So there, I gave you one of her movies that you could actually go watch. Number 2 is Pauly Shore. Oh, the money I wish I could get back from Son-in-Law, Encino Man, his dork surfer personality that worked well in little bites on MTV. But 90 straight minutes of dealing with him, good lord. I'll be fully honest, I enjoyed Pauly Shore when I was in my early teens. I think that's the audience he appealed to. He was nicknamed the Weasel. Gosh, that's just so dumb, and he would make stupid sounds. Looking back on him, it's embarrassing that I wasted money to go see him in those movies. All you need to know about how terrible Pauly Shore was as an actor in films, his highest rated film, according to IMDb user ratings, is the biography of the MTV channel. So not even a movie that he starred in. He just happened to be an MTV personality. Number 3 is Steven Seagal. He is definitely up there as one of the most hated actors, one of the worst people to deal with in Hollywood, seen as the worst host ever on Saturday Night Live. He basically was one character ever in all of his films, all of his appearances. Tough guy hero that can never be hurt, never fails, never shows emotion. He was like a C-level action star in the 90s, with movies that were hits, but his character quickly grew stale in the 2000s, the 2010s, as he got fatter, lost his range of motion. So all of his movies, he'd be in it, but then he'd have stunt doubles to do any fight scenes. Classics like Attack Force, Black Dawn, Submerged, Today You Die. All you have to do is watch 5 minutes of one Steven Seagal movie ever, and that's it. That's his whole career for 35 years. Surprisingly, he's only been nominated for 11 Razzie Awards. Number 4 is Paris Hilton. When you are born into money, you can basically get yourself into anywhere. Paris Hilton was just famous for her family having money. She was able to be in films, create albums. Her most successful film was 2005's House of Wax. I think mainly because people enjoyed seeing her get killed. She was in such crap as The Hottie and the Naughty. She was in other junk like National Lampoon's Pledge This, Bottoms Up, and Repo the Genetic Opera. Any of you seen any of those movies? Those are the ones that are on like HBO 15 at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. And yes, it is true. Paris Hilton released 2 studio albums, with her biggest hit being the song Stars Are Blind, which got into the top 20, that's gotta be a joke. So we go from someone that got into music and movies because their family had money to someone that got into movies that should have just stayed away from everything. And that was number 5, Tom Green. He was briefly famous as a quote-unquote comedian. His Tom Green show was on from 1994 to 2000 on MTV. It was mostly reality-based comedy where he just did things to make people uncomfortable, gross them out, interview them where he puts dog poop on the microphone. Things that a 13-year-old would find funny, but when you grow up, you look and just like, oh man, is that really funny? He was in such classic movies as Freddy Got Fingered, Stealing Harvard, and Bob the Butler. He's very much a one-note actor. If you see a minute of his Tom Green show, that's it. That's all you need to see. So, stretching it out through seasons of the show, several terrible movies, just thrilling stuff. But there you go. My picks for the top 5 worst actors ever. I tried my best to give reasons and not just say these are the worst because. Do you agree with my top 5? Are any of them on your favorites? Would you go see a movie that starred all of them together? Madonna and Steven Seagal as the couple, Pauly Shore as the evil mastermind they have to kill. Do you imagine Steven Seagal and Pauly Shore in the same movie? There really would be a fight. Seagal would just go after him. Alright, we go from worst actors ever to one of the best employee training videos I've ever seen. Some of these actors in this film deserve to be higher up on the list than Pauly Shore and Steven Seagal and Tom Green. So let's look at a classic employee training video from the early 90s from Kmart. Attention Kmart shoppers. For people of my generation and probably older millennials, basically anybody that's over 40, we all have fond memories of visiting Kmart. Sure, Kmart was around until the last couple of years. The final one in Bridgehampton, New York, closed October 20th, 2024. So yeah, Kmart's been around, but it's been a painful decline over the last 20 years. So here for listener's choice, I was thrilled that out of the 3 options for the employee training video, you all voted for the Kmart one. What I had chosen was the Kmart Smart Plan sales video from 1992. Boy, this is a classic. This is one of my favorites, mainly for how stupid some of the acting is. And part of it, I don't know if they're intentionally trying to make it bad, like so bad it's good. You will have to be the judge. So we're going back to 1992. This is still the heyday of Kmart. This is before Walmart and Target overtook them and really put them in the rear view. At this point in time, Kmart had about 2,300 stores in the United States. For me, growing up on Cape Cod, I would have been about 15 years old. I probably visited the Kmart in the shopping center that I just called the Kmart Plaza. I think it was the Airport Plaza. That's a very specific to Cape Cod reference. Being around that age, 15, I think I was already losing interest in Kmart. They weren't cool. They were like cheaper discount retail, even though they were still a huge place. I will say before we get started reviewing this, because I might forget, if you go to archive.org, and don't worry, I'm going to put a link in the description, there are many of the old Kmart Muzak tapes that they would play that when you were walking around and you heard the music and the occasional voiceover from somebody, you can listen to them. They're looped. They're like an hour and a half to 2 hours with music and different voiceovers. Go to our swimsuit section. Or mainly like Blue Light Special. Thank you for coming to Kmart. I will admit I spent probably 10 to 15 minutes listening to one just to get the vibe. It really brings you back. So the link to the playlist will be in the podcast notes. But without further ado, let's get into the Kmart Smart Plan sales VHS video from 1992. You know it's going to be good when it starts with some cheesy, like, early 90s teen sitcom music, and then it says Kmart News Network, KNN. Oh, God. The overarching theme of this video is the Kmart Smart Plan, It's an extended service plan or a replacement plan. Now, if you're saying that sounds an awful lot like an extended warranty, it kind of is, but they really hammer home for their employees to not refer it as an extended warranty. Then we get to this just awful acting to start it off. It sounds like they're doing forced, stereotypical New York accents. There's one woman in a blazer over a t-shirt, another one with like just blue shirt and slacks, talking about why she needed to get a new VCR.
You know, with my family, how many tapes I rent?
Sure. Why'd you let the service guy repair it?
You know how much it costs to replace video heads on a VCR?
Do I look like Miss Fix-It?
It's just cheaper to buy new ones.
Well, make sure when you buy this one, you're Kmart Smart.
Kmart Smart?
Yeah, Kmart Smart.
We get the narrator for this video, short blonde hair, quote-unquote working woman in the button-down blazer. It's got this foolish music playing underneath it. And to make it look professional, there's 2 camera cuts, so the woman is standing near the registers. Do you remember Kmart? They didn't have a line of registers. It was like 2 rows of them, so you could go to one, and then there'd be another one in front of it, kind of diagonal. If you see the video, you'll immediately recognize it and be like, I remember that, because it was different. But they do all these camera cuts, but they don't cut to her from different angles. She has to turn first, and then it cuts, so it looks very unprofessional. She gets all the info out of the way immediately. She tells you the Kmart Smart replacement plan is for things that cost $100 or less, and the Smart Service plan is for things that cost $100 or more. You get into all of the minutia about the replacement plan. There's all kinds of numbers and info on the screen, including their helpline if you want to call them up, 1-800-99-KMART. She says there'd be somebody at that Kmart helpline 24/7, 365. That means if it was 1 a.m. on Christmas Eve, you could call and there'd be somebody super happy to help you. Imagine being the one that had that job. Nope, you can't be home on Christmas Eve. You gotta sit here in case somebody calls you to complain. She gives you all of the info, how much it would cost for the people, depending on what they bought. What's interesting is, as she's standing here explaining it, it looks like the Kmart is open, and there's stuff going on, customers, but I don't know for sure. They could have just been paid extras, just told wander around behind her, but don't look at the camera. With the service plan, she lets you know that even if the person who bought the product, if there's not a Kmart near them, there's 7,000 service centers. So that means that there would have been authorized Kmart repair places. I had never heard of that. I don't know if there were any on Cape Cod or in the area. I mean, we had a Kmart. What stopped me when watching this as far as the service plan, they said it's $39.99 for anything over $500 in 1992. That's equal to just under $1,200 when adjusted for inflation to 2026. Now, what I'm coming back to is, have any of you ever gone and bought one single item at a Kmart that cost that much? I mean, TV, stereo, I don't know. Kmart always struck me as the place that you went to get, like, school clothes that were pretty affordable. But me being 15 years old at the time, I was not the target demographic for this video. I would have probably been told to get out because I was loitering. One thing that really dates this video is that the Smart Service Plan allows you 1 annual cleaning of the audio and video heads on any cassette deck, VCR, and camcorder. Remember that? Clean the heads on your VCR, it'll make the tapes run smoother. I wonder if anyone took advantage of that, going into a Kmart with their VCR. Because you remember they had those VHS tapes that were like the cleaners? You'd put it in the VCR and just hit play and it would clean automatically. You'd get a certain number of runs out of it and then you'd have to go buy another one. Sorry, my brain just wanders like that. After this lady has spent the better part of 5 minutes spinning back and forth to the different cameras explaining the smart plan, sales plan, she gets real serious about, let's tell you what it's not. It's not extended warranty.
You are not selling an extended warranty. You never want to refer to the plan you're offering to your customers as an extended warranty, guarantee, or service contract. Many customers don't like extended warranties, but this program is different.
She then explains why it's different than an extended warranty, and she says most customers don't like extended warranties, which is pretty obvious. They're pretty much all scams. Sorry to anyone out there who got the extended warranty that came in the mail for their car or something. If all of the minutia of her explaining the differences between the two plans start to make your eyes cross, you can do like what I did. I've watched this video 3 times for the podcast, so what I started to do was look around behind her to see what things were on display. Like you can see the film processing lab behind her, the magazine rack with like National Enquirer, the whole display of Kraft mac and cheese, which I don't know why that would be up at the front. Finally, about halfway through this nearly 19-minute video, we get to some of the real fun. Like, she's explained all this, it's pretty boring, I won't lie to you. But then we get into, like, trying to sell the plans in action, the best and worst ways. It starts pretty basic, a woman bringing what looks like a toaster oven up to the register, and the cashier's very friendly. Everyone has a Kmart credit card, of course, because it's a Kmart video. But the host says, oops, she didn't talk about that plan, so you gotta make sure you really hammer it home. I'm sure all of you that have gone into different retail department stores over the years have been badgered about their extended warranty or service plan, so just imagine it's like that. But keep your eyes peeled as you're watching this, because one of the funniest things in this whole video starts in this segment with the woman trying to sell her the sales plan. She's got her Kmart vest on, the red one. She's got a name tag that says Debbie on it. The reason that's funny is because later there's another segment with a different employee, and she's got the same name tag, Debbie. Like they just had one and they just passed it all around. Little did they know, 35 years later, a Gen X podcaster would spot it and make fun of it on his show. Then we get terrible acting, take 1,000. There's a woman looking at VCRs, and some skeezy-looking sales guy named Dan comes up, and he says, oh, I see you're looking at VCRs. And then he, like, whips out a yo-yo like he's trying to hypnotize her. Look at this, and he's wiggling this yo-yo in front of her. Like, the hell's... They thought that would be funny.
I see you're looking at VCRs.
Yes, I am.
Well, here, look at this. You will buy the Kmart Smart Plan. You will buy the Kmart Smart Plan. You will buy the Kmart Smart Plan.
I will buy the Kmart Smart Plan.
He, like, says it repeatedly. You will buy the Kmart Smart Plan. Like, oh, man. That is just, it's so lame. And the host lady says that subliminal messaging only works in sci-fi. I'm sure they were trying to get their, like, high school aged employees to laugh at that. It was probably crickets every time they showed it. Of course, they go back to this same guy being smart and convincing her to buy the smart plan because everybody buys it in this video. They then show you some guy in the tools section with a chainsaw saying that it's great, and the employee there, also named Dan, is very wishy-washy. You don't really want to buy the plan, do you? Gosh, really? They explain the no lemon law when they go back to Dan number 2 selling the chainsaw, saying that the 4th time it needs repairs, we consider it a lemon and you get a brand new one. There has got to be a specific time frame. There's got to be all kinds of fine print with that. We go to Debbie number 2 trying to sell the plan for an exercise bike, and this old lady is just, no, she doesn't want to buy it, and the girl's like begging her, please, my boss will kill me if I don't sell it. You go back to the host lady, and she says, well, it is true when she said my boss will kill me. Well, no, she said my boss is counting on me, because they're counting on the upsell for more money coming in, so it is true. They go back and the Debbie part 2 is trying to sell her on the bike again, and she says no anyway, and she's like, well, thanks for listening. But then we come to, are you going to put it on your Kmart credit card? Because everybody's got one. The host lady then tries to play like therapist, saying, don't worry, they're not saying no to you, they're saying no to the plan, so don't take it personally. Like, I'm sure the 18-year-old that was working the floor at Kmart in 1992 even tried to give them the upsell. They were probably just like, whatever. Finally, we get some guy that just does the smart plan on his own. He's buying a shop vac. He goes up to the register and it's Debbie number 3 there. Every single person they hire is Debbie. This one looks a little bit like the woman from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Principal Rooney's assistant. She rings up his shop vac and then she tells him about the replacement plan and he says, I'll take it. But he had already brought up the little scan sheet that goes with it. So it's like, wait a minute. I think he was confused. The pants being pulled up to his ribs must have squeezed all the air out of his brain. We get to the end of this video, and the host lady says that if it's offered properly, 4 out of 10 people will get this sales plan. So that basically means no matter what, 6 out of 10 will say no. It does not say what percentage of them have Kmart credit cards. According to this video, every single person that walks in has one and uses one. Although, to be honest, I had a Sears credit card I got in the late 90s that I think I never used. She gives you a final pep talk as the music starts playing, and finally in the background some random person is walking up. It looks like one of the customers didn't listen to the just walk around and don't look at the camera. We go full circle with those 2 ladies from the beginning with their super fake New York accents talking about the Kmart sales plan. I think I could count on one hand with fingers left the number of people that talked about the sales plan in any store that were customers ever.
Kmart offers a great program to protect you from the high cost of repairs. It's the Kmart Smart Plan.
Oh, it sounds an awful lot like an extended warranty. You know how those things give me the willies.
Would I do that to you? Let me put it to you this way. With the Kmart Smart Plan, you wouldn't need to buy a new VCR. In fact, with the preventative maintenance it includes, it probably wouldn't have broken down in the first place.
Yes, the lady in the black blazer, God, she's incredibly annoying. That's why I say I don't know if they played this to be humorous. She's got lots of heavy eye rolls and eye movements as she points and a lot of talking with her hands. I guess this is how Kmart corporate saw New Yorkers. And that's how we end. Kmart Smart Plan sales from 1992. Very informative and somewhat boring in the middle where they give you the actual details of these plans. But then super funny when they give you the situations of them trying to sell the plan. When I was putting together the poll for episode 250, there were 4 different Kmart videos, employee training ones that I found. This was the one that I chose, but there are 3 other ones that might be even funnier. And like I said, I've got the link in the podcast notes for you to go and listen to the in-store Muzak tapes from Kmart. It won't take you long to get the vibe, because each tape is like 1.5 to 2 hours long, so this is not something like you play in the background while you're doing something else. It's like, listen for a minute, get the vibe, and move on. But until next week, that is going to wrap up episode 250, Listener's Choice of the In My Footsteps podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, if you did, for voting in the polls. I hope you are happy with what you chose for this episode. It's incredible for me to look back at when this podcast was a little kernel of an idea as I was walking the local high school track back in late September of 2020, that here I am 250 episodes deep and just looking forward to researching and putting together the script and recording, not as much editing, but marketing the podcast every week. I say that, and then next week is going to be mixtape number 4, the collection of my weirdest laws from all 6 New England states. It's a lot of fun for us who live in New England to see some of the weirdest laws that have ever been on the books. For those of you that don't live in New England, there was a website that I went to called stupidlaws.com that gave me a lot of the info. When I just went to check for it, I think it's been either hacked or it's been bought by someone else. Oh man, that means I'm going to have to find another one that's got all the collections of laws for you. Either way, that'll be next week, mixtape number 4 for the 4th of July weekend. I'm taking kind of a break, not really a break. Then the week after, we will start up the podcast again proper with episode 251. We're going to look back at the origins of CGI, just in general and then in movies. We're going to go back 35 years to look at the release of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, one of the best movies I've ever seen in the theaters. And we're going to have a brand new top 5 that are the top 5 passing fads of the 2000s. So recent, but so long ago. So that's going to be in 2 weeks, episode 251 of the In My Footsteps podcast. I'm thrilled to have this episode 250, this kind of a moment that I can reflect on the podcast, because a lot of the times it's week after week, continuing to research, record, edit, and all that. So to have kind of an excuse to spend a few minutes just looking back at all the content that I've put together here, and the fact that I have so much more to come. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I could easily do another 200 episodes if I just stopped researching. But we all know that won't happen. Thank you so much for being a part of this ride, whether this is your first episode ever, or if you listen every week. I hope you have enjoyed all of the stuff I put together. I do my very best to never half-ass anything when it comes to any of my content. It's kind of like, if I don't care about it, why should you? So I try to put my best into everything I do with this show, blogs, videos, my film work I'm getting into. I care a ton about all that I do, and I hope it comes through when you listen, watch, read, whatever. If you enjoy my work and you want to support me, you can become a member on Patreon. I've got a couple of different paying tiers. I've got an ever-growing free tier. You can buy me a coffee. Links to all that are in the podcast notes. You can always share things that you like of mine. That means a ton. With the fundraiser for The Cabin, my feature film debut that I'm going to be shooting later in the summer, a lot of donations have come from those that have shared it in other places. As of the recording of this podcast, I am 1/3 of the way to the budget, with a little under 2 months to go. So I'm feeling very good and very confident about this getting fully funded. And then we go from there. The funding of it, I think, is the hardest part. Filming, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but having Mark Polonia as the director who's done more than 100 films, I'm very confident in his vision, his work. Then it's just editing it, and once it's edited, working on getting it released through streaming, DVD, Blu-ray sales. I'm hoping for some kind of theatrical release, even if it's in a couple of small theaters on Cape Cod, just to have friends and family come out to the theater and watch a movie I put together, that I wrote and produced on the big screen. It's literally a dream I've had since I was in high school. It is interesting, and I think it is noticeable. You hear when I'm talking about the projects I'm working on, that I'm doing things I like, but it also comes back around to family and friends getting to be a part of it. I think part of it is to validate their support, their love. I've got so many family members and friends that have always had my back through decades. And a lot of the time I get imposter syndrome, or I feel like I'm behind where I should be. So doing big things like The Cabin, it's kind of a way that I get to point back at them and say, see, you were right to support me. Happy birthday to my old friend Megan, longtime friend, co-worker at the Old Marsh. Go back and listen to some of my restaurant storytime episodes and see how many of those you remember being a part of. Alright, it's about time for me to ring the bell, let the class out for recess. I hope wherever you are, the weather is beautiful, you're enjoying summer. If school's out for you parents, I hope the kids are being good, or maybe they're off at camp so you can relax. Thank you so much for being a part of Listener's Choice, episode 250. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey I've been on with this podcast for closing in on 6 years. That'll be the next celebration. Will be the first week of November when I celebrate the 6th anniversary of this podcast. Maybe we'll do Listener's Choice again so you can do some of my work. Maybe I'll just have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Well, that's a given. But until next time, remember, don't walk in anyone else's footsteps, create your own path, and enjoy every moment you can on this journey we call life, because you never know what tomorrow brings. Thank you all again for tuning in. This has been the In My Footsteps podcast. I am Christopher Setterlin. You already knew that, and I'll talk to you all again soon.